The best summer memories are made outside, and LL Bean has the clothing and gear you need to make these memories. Their effortless styles are created for summer spent outside with family and friends. Like hand-sewn boat shoes, coastal cotton sweaters, rugged polos, and, of course, the iconic boat and tote, which has been made right here in Maine since 1944. LL Bean. Be an outsider. Visit llbean.com to learn more.
Lowe's has the brands pros trust to get the job done. You can now shop new Catalyst fencing solutions and save big when you do. 10% off when you buy in bulk. Plus, save $180 on a DeWalt 12-inch dual bevel sliding compound miter saw. Now just $449. Our best lineup is here at Lowe's. Valid through 5/6 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
Hi, Nat Doig here, and just a heads up that today's very special anniversary episode of Weird in the Wade does contain some strong language. We're sitting within a circle of light around the Golden Pheasant pub. Just sit here and listen and meditate. Oh,
sorry to
it's
interrupt you. Brian's got some interesting audio.
Already? Oh yeah.
Did you hear that?
I shivered. Thought, "Ooh."
Yeah.
As the figure turned around, there just weren't eyes. That's proper creepy.
Sorry.
Can you do that for me again? If there's anybody here, can you cross the rods over, please?
Done it.
Yep.
Did you drink in the Golden Pheasant? Did you used to drink here? If it's a yes, please cross them towards me. And if it's a no, please park them.
I have considered the cellar, and I must say, I came here with very, very sceptical mind, and the experience I've had have absolutely surpassed my wildest imagination.
We don't talk about the gnomes.
Welcome to Weird in the Wade, a podcast about all that's weird, wonderful, and a little off kilter in the town of Biggleswade in Bedfordshire and its surrounding area. If you like your history with a pinch of the paranormal and your supernatural stories with some historical context, then this is the podcast for you. Whether it's haunted pubs or the mystery of Tempsford. Grab a cuppa, sit back, and let me take you on a journey into the weird. Hello and welcome to this very special episode of Weird in the Wade. I'm Nat Doig, and today we're celebrating 3 years of Weird in the Wade podcast, and it's the 50th episode. Now, I know the numbering of the episode looks like we're somewhere in the 40s, but I forgot to number certain episodes early on for various reasons. So this is officially the 50th episode, which has been released on BBC Sounds, so I'm taking that as the official number. The last 3 years have been quite a thrilling ride for me. I couldn't have made 50 episodes in 3 years without you, my lovely listeners. I hoped originally to get maybe a dozen listeners in the first week when I released the Haunted Pound Stretcher episode. My ambitious target was for 50 in the first month. Weird in the Wade smashed that target thanks to all of you. Wherever you're listening, thank you so much. Whether you've been here from the start, and yep, there is a few of you out there, not just my mum and Tess, or if you have only recently found Weird in the Wade, you are all welcome, and I am so grateful to you for listening to my stories. Last year, for the 2nd anniversary, I returned to where it all started at the Haunted Pound Stretcher and held a paranormal investigation there until about 2 a.m. This year, I wanted to go one better. And so I stayed the night from 10 p.m. until 7 a.m. at the Golden Pheasant pub, the most haunted pub in Biggleswade. I wasn't alone. There were 9 of us camping out overnight in the bar, and you'll get to meet all of them really soon. But I just wanted to give you a quick reminder about why the Golden Pheasant has such a reputation for hauntings. Previously on Weird in the Wade. You know, I still love saying that. The first episode I made about the pheasant was in October 2023 as a Halloween special. And it's still one of my favourite stories, partly because when researching the history of the pub, my blood ran cold on 2 occasions. It's also one of my favourite stories, as working on it has led to me making some wonderful friends, and I want to say a huge thank you to Paddy the landlord, and for the staff past and present, Tom, Carl, Chev and Max, for being so accommodating. Also to all the regulars who know me, even if you only know me as the ghost lady. Thank you for putting up with me over the last few years. The Golden Pheasant has had a reputation for being haunted for a long time. From disembodied singing, which is heard in the pub by staff and customers, to the story of a tragic woman run over by a carriage who haunts the inn. When researching the history of the pub, I discovered that in 1900, a man named William Robinson had died after an accident at the pub which related to singing. He had started some banter and a bit of dad dancing with a younger customer named Arthur French, who was singing one evening in the pub. Together, they competed in singing their choice of song like a 1900 rap battle. It was all good-natured and just a bit of horseplay, the customers and landlady claimed at William's inquest. In the end, Arthur and William had started waltzing together around the bar and along the narrow passageway leading out of the pub, which still exists today. They'd taken a tumble and William hit his head on the stone floor. Never fully regaining consciousness, he died the next day at home. Was the ghostly singing heard in the pub decades later connected to William's death somehow? Then there was the newspaper story I found about a woman named Anne Larman. Her story had similarities to the one I had been told about a Victorian woman who haunted the pheasant. I'd heard that the pub had once been the town brothel, and one of the women who worked there had been killed by a carriage and now haunted the pub. Anne Larman was described by the Victorian press as being an unfortunate, a euphemism used at the time for sex workers. Anne wasn't killed by a horse and carriage, but she was killed whilst with a young man, possibly a client, by a train whilst crossing the railway tracks. It was a loose connection, but I went back to the pub to tell Paddy the landlord. His response was what made my blood run cold. I explained that I had found a tragic death involving a train and possibly train carriages, not a horse and carriage. Paddy said to me, "Well, this ghost here, she's supposed to be headless." I shivered, because no one had told me that before when telling me the story. But the inquest into Anne Larman's death contained gruesome details of her injuries, which included the fact that she was decapitated by the train. To me, it now seemed more likely that this story of a woman associated with the pub who had been tragically killed on a railway could be where this ghost story originated. Later, I corresponded with a gentleman who had seen a little girl ghost upstairs in the flat above the pub. There were tales of Paddy the landlord's little dog being terrified one day in the cellar and refusing to go down there afterwards. The pheasant also has its fair share of strange occurrences, unexplained knocks and bangs, moving items and disappearing items, but we'll look at some of those in more detail throughout this episode. To go back and revisit the pub and search for more information about its history just seemed like the perfect way to celebrate 3 years and 50 episodes of Weird in the Wade. The Paranormal Sleepover and the Scooby Gang. I gathered a group of friends to stay with me overnight at the Pheasant because I wasn't doing this one alone. We were going to sleep actually in the bar. You'll know some of this gang because they've been on the podcast before. I've started referring to us as the Scooby Gang because yes, I love Buffy and Scooby-Doo. But I'll introduce them to you as we set out our intentions for the night. I'll tell you what equipment that they brought with them as well so that you can get to know who was there on the night and kind of why they were there. We're sitting within a circle of light around the Golden Pheasant pub. Our intentions. Just as at the former Pounds Stretcher investigation, I started by setting up protection for us from a spiritual and psychological point of view, which I think is important. Gods and goddesses of earth to come and protectors. For any energies or spirits who reside here in this space, at the Golden Pheasant, I just want you to know that we are here in kindness, with curiosity and love in our hearts. Picture the scene. A pub after midnight. All the lights but one behind the bar were switched off. 8 of us are huddled around a pub table, setting our intentions. And if you check out the show blog on weirdintheway.blog, you will see some photographs of us from the night and of the pub so that you can get a sense of the geography. I'm going to play to you some of the Scooby Gang's own intentions as a way to introduce them to you. First to share was Andy, who you'll remember from What's Haunting Andy's House episode. Andy is currently sporting a rather spectacular mullet, though it's often covered by a hat. He always has a smile on his face. Andy had brought with him an AM radio which we used detuned to hear if there was any crackles in the static, which could indicate paranormal activity. More on that later.
I love this pub. It's like a second home to me. I spend a lot of time in here, and many of the patrons are like a family to me. I'd love to learn a bit more of the history of this pub and meet some of the people that frequented here before I did.
Next to share was Steph, who you'll remember from the Paranormal Women episode. Steph has strawberry blonde hair and a very gentle but determined energy about her. Steph brought some kitten balls along. These are like cat toys, though my cat is terrified of them. But they're not really for cats to play with. They light up and make a noise if they're moved in any way, and so are used as an indicator for any poltergeist-like activity, though vibrations of any kind can set them off.
I don't have a specific intention to ask you about, but I'm looking forward to an evening of investigation in some excellent company.
Next to share was Brian Bland from Amped Hill Ghost Walks, who you'll remember from the Cooper's Hill episode. Brian is a tall man with a big personality. He had brought his dowsing rods with him, and he went straight in there saying who he would like to make contact with.
I would be delighted if Anne Larman was here and wanted to make contact tonight through me.
Next was Olie Campbell, who you'll remember from the Cooper's Hill and Buryman episodes because of his beautiful music. Olie is tall with a shock of dark hair and a big moustache. Olie brought his guitar with him so that we could play music and sing in the pub and see if that attracted any activity. Olie also set up a trail cam in the cellar. More on that later.
It'd be lovely to hear some singing.
Next is Mikey, Ollie's best mate and a filmmaker. Mikey was filming our activities, and a short film will be available later about the night. Mikey has that quality of all great filmmakers. He made us forget that he was filming us.
But if anybody wants to show themselves on camera, now's a chance.
And next is Rhiannon. This was her first ghost hunt or paranormal investigation in Biggleswade, and she was understandably nervous. Rhiannon has wonderful thick dark brown hair, and she's a community gardener, so she brought along some herbs that we placed in various spots in the pub for protection from any negative energies.
I'm also looking forward to some investigation and to be open-minded, and also please don't do us any harm. Thank you.
Also with us was Paul Day, who you'll remember from the Blind George of Anstey episode and the Return to the Haunted Pound Stretcher investigation last year. Paul, being an old hand now at these paranormal investigations, didn't feel the need to set an intention. Paul has dark hair and a calm energy about him. There was also Tom, the barman at the Pheasant. He was in charge of the pub overnight and was also conducting tours of the cellar for us. Tom has dark curly hair and is normally very chatty, but wasn't convinced that night of whether he wanted to be recorded or not for the podcast. He changed his mind, thankfully. He was our resident skeptic, or science man, as Andy described him, and told us one of the creepiest stories about the pub, which you'll get to hear later. Intentions set and our introductions done, let's get into the night itself. As many of the spaces in the Golden Pheasant are small or narrow, I suggested that we split up into groups. Paul, Steph and I chose to sit in the narrow passageway where William and Arthur had taken a tumble on that fateful Friday the 13th in 1900. The others had opted to go into a shed at the bottom of the yard. This shed was said to have been a former mortuary, and many customers and staff have said that it has a creepy vibe in there. Steph, Paul and I got ourselves settled, sitting on the stone floor in the passage. We couldn't have comfortably fitted anyone else in there with us when Olie burst in. Here's Olie interrupting us, and then the audio from the shed where I went to investigate what had got the other group so excited. Then you'll hear me in the shed during the day when I went back to test out what had been going on more thoroughly. Now, there's a lot of equipment in the shed which buzzes, so apologies for the background noise, but it does kind of add to the creepy atmosphere in there, I think. The first thing that I'm just going to suggest we do, just sit here, and I know we'll be able to hear other people and stuff, but just sit here and listen and meditate. Oh,
sorry to
it's
interrupt
all
you. Brian's got some interesting audio.
Already?
It's happening now on the AM radio.
Oh God. Okay.
Sorry to disturb.
No,
this is good, Jen.
This is good. Paul, I'm sorry. I'm just dashing because he's saying it's happening right now.
Yeah, it's happening now. Sorry,
Yeah, I'm coming.
I'll explain what's happening. If you come in here and be quiet, now get your mic out, and I'll give you something that I can't explain, right?
Where is the AM radio?
It's there.
Oh,
It's
okay.
there. Yeah.
Oh, it's only little.
It's only little. It's my camping one. I bought it 15 years ago, before you could get music on your phones.
Okay, so Nat, are you recording?
Yeah.
Okay, so we just came into a shed which is a morgue at the back of the pub. So there's Rhiannon and Andy and I just came in here, and what we were doing before we started to announce our presence and see whether we can make some contact with some spirits, we decided whether we were going to have the light on or off. And when the light comes on, when we turn the light on or off, there is the most unusual disturbance that I've never heard before on an AM radio.
Okay.
And it sounds as if the starters of the fluorescent lights are actually interfering with the radio.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't understand how that's happening.
Yeah,
The light's
yeah.
currently on. I'm now going to turn the light off, and then when I turn it back on, you will... That was Rhiannon's. That was you. Okay, I'm going to turn the light off now, and then if it goes silent, I'll turn it back on. So let's turn the light off. Okay. Right, I'm now going to turn the light back on. Are you ready?
Mhm. Oh yeah.
Did you hear that?
Yeah.
So let's turn the light back off again.
So
That's the 7th time.
Tom, do you want to have a guess about what it might be? He's our resident
Science man.
Stuff. It's going to be something to do with the starters, isn't it?
I
I guess. But if you
It's a proper radio. You
your
can
pitching
listen
light when you
to.
back in the day never did that on your radio.
Yeah, look at it. If I had my EMF reader with me, it would be going beep, 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 beep. So I am here in the shed, as it is referred to at the Golden Pheasant pub. I'm in here by myself, but it is daytime. And you'll probably hear there's a lot of machinery in here making a noise. There's I think a freezer. There's lots of stuff stored, as you would imagine, in a pub shed, including bits of furniture and garden furniture and lots of boxes. But this shed, it is rumoured, used to be a mortuary or a morgue. It's quite a small size for a mortuary. I mean, if you really wanted to cram a lot of bodies in here, you're probably still only going to get a dozen, and that would be pretty cramped. I'm guessing you could probably store maybe 3 or 4 bodies in here, which is quite a disconcerting thought as I'm standing here talking about that. But the reason I'm in here is not just because it's a mortuary or a morgue, but on the night that we did the paranormal sleepover, I forgot to bring my EMF reader. And this was one of the places where we had both crackling happening on the radio, and also when Brian was using his dowsing rods, there was some activity here. He was contacting a spirit. We had quite a long conversation with using the dowsing rods. So this was seen as the area that I guess most people found creepy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the tests that I couldn't do on the night, but I'm kind of encumbered with a lot of equipment here, so just bear with me. But what I wanted to test was switching on the light. So, okay, we've got a reading here of both electrical and magnetic. The magnetic is actually higher than the electrical. So the electrical field number is about 1415. the magnetic field coming from the light switch once we switch the light on is over 100. So I think it's pretty clear that the crackling that we were getting was because of switching the light on and off. And I'm just going to test the light switch as well. I'm going to put the EMF reader by the light switch. Nothing, but what happens when I switch it? The light switch itself is giving off both electric and magnetic field information. I switch it off and it's gone. So I think even just the switching on and off of the light could have caused that crackle on the radio. Could the shed really have been used as a mortuary? I'd assumed if it had been, it must have been decades ago, possibly in the 19th century. But it seems it may have been used by funeral directors in the 1980s for a few months to maybe up to a year. I found adverts for a funeral directors based on Church Street, which could have used the shed for storage. We know that at the same time, a different undertaker's was using part of the old pound stretcher building to store bodies in as well. Now, Church Street obviously is close to the church, it's very central, and it seems to have been a popular location for undertakers in the 1980s. But more than that, I haven't been able to find out. EMF readers. What does an EMF reader tell us, and why would electromagnetic fields make a radio crackle? You may have just heard Brian wonder why our AM and FM radios back in the day weren't crackling every time a light was switched on and off. Electromagnetic field readers, or EMF readers for short, are used by electricians to check for electrical magnetic fields or electromagnetic energy around household appliance and wiring, from household wiring to power lines. My very basic understanding is that when electric and magnetic fields or forces move and interact, you get an electromagnetic field. The Earth, of course, has its own magnetic field, and natural occurrences like thunderstorms also create electromagnetic fields. But the vast majority that we come across today are formed by electrical appliances or equipment. Paranormal investigators started using EMF readers for a couple of reasons. The first being to rule out any naturally occurring electrical or magnetic interference which could be creating certain phenomena reported in hauntings. For example, Kieran O'Keefe has told me of a situation where a broken TV aerial on a roof was creating so much electromagnetic force it was causing people who came near it in the bedroom to feel uncomfortable. Once the aerial from the roof was removed, that uncomfortable feeling in the bedroom stopped. Some ghost hunters, however, believe that ghosts or paranormal entities can interfere with the electromagnetic field or generate one themselves. So they also use EMF readers to measure anomalies in that field. As you heard though, I forgot to take my EMF reader with me on the night of the paranormal sleepover. But once I did take it to the pub, we discovered a couple of really cool things. The light switch itself, as well as the fluorescent tube light, gave off an elevated EMF reading, particularly when the light was switched on. There's a reason that these fluorescent lights are used less frequently nowadays. They're inefficient and waste a lot of electricity. I'm not an expert, as I've said, but I suspect that's why they generate a higher EMF reading than, say, LED lights do. They're just inefficient. They're noisy, and personally, fluorescent lights give me a headache. Now, there are a lot of claims that this type of lighting is bad for your health. Some of these claims appear to be true. They can cause migraines, whilst others not so much. Either way, I think the readings that we were getting from the light are normal for an old-fashioned fluorescent strip light. And it's this electromagnetic field that is interfering with the radio when the light is switched on. Apparently, they used to interfere with TVs too. I suspect that if we had tuned the radio to an actual station and were listening to music, we would not have noticed that crackle so much. So back in the day, I suspect radios were responding to lights being switched on, but we just didn't notice. I took the EMF reader into the main pub as well, and we were able to pinpoint where various bits of equipment were in the cellar below us by running the EMF reader along the floor of the bar. I found the exact point where the post-mix machine, which is a kind of industrial soda stream, was in the cellar exactly. And if I left the reader on top of it, on the floor there, it beeped away quite happily. I did find, however, in the corner of the bar, near to the front door, a magnetic field reading. No electrical reading, just a magnetic field. that was strong enough for it to make the reader beep, and this is quite unusual. There were no speakers there, which have magnets in them, nor any other equipment that could be setting it off. The cellar is not below the pub at that part, and the old tunnel network likely is, but obviously we can't get into it. I could follow the magnetic field in a diagonal direction out of the pub also. I really don't know enough about this kind of thing to work out what could have been causing it, but it was intriguing. A few days later, after writing this, I went back to the Golden Pheasant on Saturday and I took the EMF reader. The magnetic field was definitely showing up again in that corner, and I went outside of the pub and I had Andy from What's Haunting Andy's House with me, and we're looking at the magnetic reading and it's really off the scale. I've not seen anything like it. And as I moved the EMF reader around, I noticed that it's really high over a little manhole covering in the pavement. And I put it down on that manhole covering and it is going wild. Beep, 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 beep. Andy takes one look at it and says that's the water mains, and they use magnets to measure the water level and water consumption. So I'm afraid we've solved the mystery of the magnetic field in the corner of the pub. It looks like it's something to do with the water meter. Paul's cold. After the initial excitement about the lights causing the radio to crackle, Steph and I returned to find Paul still sitting in the passage quietly waiting for us. And he had a tale to tell though.
It's a bit chilly in here, isn't it? It's quite fresh, but it felt as if it got noticeably colder because I shivered around my middle sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm fine, absolutely fine now. And it wasn't because the doors were open at the end or...
Yeah, you really felt a shiver.
Yeah, no, I just felt everything got suddenly a bit colder to the point where I thought, ooh.
Yeah.
And I'm fine now, I've got my jacket undone.
Yeah.
And I feel absolutely fine now. And I just don't know why that was. It was about 3 or 4 minutes after you left.
Oh wow, so not straight away?
No.
So it couldn't have been a draft?
No, there wasn't a draft at all, no, because obviously when you went out the door you could feel drafts coming in a little bit, but no, I just felt a bit, ooh.
It wasn't the only strange sensation felt that night. Mikey also felt as if someone was standing right behind him when he was standing next to the bar, in direct line of the passage. When I was in the same place earlier in the night, I felt someone touch my wrist. Now, it felt so real, like a cold fingertip pressing onto my wrist, that I honestly thought someone had walked past and poked me. But everyone was seated. The doors were closed. No one could have touched me. In both situations, Mikey and I were not even trying to do any investigation. I was just chatting, as was Mikey. Tom's nightmare. Although Tom was our resident skeptic and science man on the night, he in many ways stole the show. When at around 3:30 a.m, he told us all about a very vivid nightmare he had while sleeping in the bar some time ago. Now, I recorded this tale on the night, but we also had the AM radio spluttering out static in the background, which makes most of Tom's tale unlistenable. Plus, Tom wasn't anywhere near a mic. But the story was so creepy, I asked Tom if he would share the story with me again, so that you can hear it. We met by the river on an early spring afternoon, so you will hear birds and passers-by in the background, but it's a far more pleasant backdrop noise than the hissing radio. Do you believe in ghosts?
I'm a big believer that anything in the world that is genuinely in the world can be measured in some kind of scientific manner. What that is and whether or not we've learned how to do that is neither here nor there. If things exist, there is physical evidence of them existing.
But you were on that night, I referred to you as our resident skeptic.
Yes. Resident skeptic is a term I very much appreciate because that is how I am in most things.
Yeah.
If someone tells me that the sky is blue, I will be the resident skeptic because partially it's fun to be just contrary, and more than anything else, well, is it? I don't know how the cones of my eyes work.
Yeah, and what's blue to me might not be blue to you.
No.
This isn't a ghost sighting, is it? This is a dream that you had.
This is very much a dream from someone who has something akin to, I think they call it hyperphantasia. I can visualise things very easily in my brain. It helps with drawing and painting and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I've always had quite an active and very clear mental image. When I was 15, I was borderline lucid dreaming. It was brilliant. I could do whatever I wanted in my brain. But after I've turned about 17 or 18, I just stopped being able to remember dreams at all.
So this is quite unusual then for you to remember a dream like this?
It's beyond unusual, it's just uncomfortable.
When you told it on the night, you got goosebumps.
Yeah, it happens every time I think about it because it was very creepy, and this is just one of those things where my very, very visual brain gave me a incredibly visual image that was uncomfortable.
So you were spending the night at the pub and you were sleeping downstairs in the bar, is that right?
Yeah, so upstairs above the pub is all Paddy's living space, and at the time I'm pretty sure he was still in hospital, so rather than getting up at 5 in the morning to get to the pub, it just made more sense to get an extra 45 minutes sleep and stay at the pub.
What happened that night?
I brought everything down, stashed it all in the back room, finished my shift around midnight because I popped down the corner shop before they shut and got myself some dinner. Nuked that, sat in the garden, contemplated the nature of my own existence because I'm staying at work and I swore to myself I'd never do that, but it was necessary, so c'est la vie. Came back, sat down, and I opted for the shorter couch, and it is significantly shorter, so you just prop a chair at the end of it to rest your feet on so you don't break your knees. When you turn all the lights off in that room, the only light you have left is the emergency exit light that's above the door, which gives everything like a lovely sweet green glow. I was using my jacket as a blanket, so I used that to basically cover my face so I didn't have to have the green glowing in my eyes while trying to sleep. I fell asleep at some point, and what felt like ages later, you know, when you feel like you've slept for a while, I thought I was woken up by the light being on behind the bar. So I remember sitting up, kind of a bit bleary-headed, going, well, why is the light on behind the bar? And I could see someone that I didn't recognise stood right next to the pumps, polishing a glass. They kind of just looked over towards me, and as the head shifted, the face kind of changed and got really creepy, and that's when I immediately woke up as they stared at me and realised that the light wasn't on at all. Everything is still pitch black except for the green of the emergency light, and I just felt really uncomfortable, so I went absolutely bugger this, packed up all my stuff, moved into the kitchen and slept on the cold floor in there instead because there was no way I was staying in that room. It just felt wonky.
What did he look like before and then when it went wrong?
So quite thin-faced, long head, sharp-featured, and as it kind of shifted everywhere, which was a little bit concave and had a little bit of a shadow, everything just kind of really darkened, like the kind of thing you'd see in an amateur horror movie.
Okay.
Still don't like thinking about that.
Yeah, I think it's quite an archetypal image.
It's a very archetypal image. If you want to understand archetypal imagery, look at the kind of thing that appeared on cave paintings.
Yeah.
It's where it all starts. It ties into the primal parts of our brain, and there's a reason that we see certain imagery always consistently coming up. Certain shapes come up, certain distortions come up. There's just things that are kind of ingrained in us. Anyone who has seen dead people knows the features that change first. The lips change, the eyes change, they sink a little bit, the discoloration kicks in, and yeah, these are the things that often are used, especially in paintings like The Scream, to depict something horrible.
Is that what he looked like? As if his features were decaying in front of your eye?
Where there were eyes looking at what he was doing, as the figure turned around, there just weren't eyes.
Okay.
And it was like someone painted over them with Vanta black, and it was just, there was no light there was just no feature there, it was just sunken.
The whole Japanese tradition of the faceless ghosts, where you see someone, they look completely normal, you approach them and they turn around and there's no features, or the features are so sunken and warped.
Okay.
Yeah,
yeah,
there's
no,
a whole...
I hadn't considered that. That's proper creepy.
Sorry.
Wonderful.
I told you it was creepy. And I'm grateful to Tom for telling us that tale, because he really does get goosebumps every time he thinks about that man that he saw. And Tom, being an artist, has sketched a picture of this nightmare image for us. And if you keep an eye on our socials and the show blog, you'll get to see that image of Tom's nightmare figure. It's really creepy. And just one other thing to let you know. There has been another development at the Golden Pheasant as I have been making this episode. I don't have time to put it in today's episode, So when our next episode comes out on the 11th of May, there will be an update, not only about the Golden Pheasant, but also about the Road Ghost episode. Interestingly, on 4 occasions on the sleepover night, as Tom told this tale, the radio crackled. And this time, there were no lights being switched on and off. There was nothing that should have made the radio crackle. Here are the clips of the crackles from the night.
So everything I'm going to say now, understand that I'm saying it from the position of I am asleep.
Yeah, I get it.
But I'm not aware that I'm asleep.
Okay.
Well, I don't dream because I will get up thinking I'm awake, walk around, do stuff, sit down somewhere. I have considered the cellar, ambient,
The first crackle may be hard to hear, but the others I think are clearer. I don't know what made the radio crackle at those points where Tom is speaking in the pub. I wondered if the crackles corresponded to some of the things Tom was saying at the time. So I looked at the words just before and after the crackles, and you could then interpret the crackles happening at a point which would create the sentence, asleep, like I awake, walk cellar. But also it could just as likely be saying that I'm awake, ambient. So I really don't know, but it was curious. Obviously, Tom is very clear that this was a nightmare, not an actual sighting of a ghost. But the fact that it still gives him goosebumps, and to be fair, all of us who heard it on the night also had goosebumps, makes it feel more significant. I did test where Tom slept that night of the nightmare with the EMF reader, but found no significant EMF readings. High EMF can induce feelings of unease. There's also evidence that extremely strong magnetic fields can bring on sleep paralysis type experiences. And although Tom didn't appear to experience any paralysis, the waking dream aspect is very common in sleep paralysis and other sleep disorders. Hearing Tom's dream really did make me want to find out more about the past landlords and bar staff from the Pheasant, though. As we head to the adverts, just a reminder, you can get Weird in the Wade advert free in the UK by subscribing to BBC Sounds and everywhere else in the world by joining Weird in the Wade's Patreon. Just search Weird in the Wade Patreon or follow the link in the episode description to find out more about how you can get advert-free episodes. And for those of you listening to the ads, please remember that by listening to them, you're supporting the show. Thank you.
Pepsi Prebiotic Cola in original and cherry vanilla. That Pepsi taste you love with no artificial sweeteners and 3 grams of prebiotic fiber. Pepsi Prebiotic Cola. Unbelievably Pepsi.
Now at McDonald's, a McDouble is $2.50, so you can get your gym gains on. Or just get lunch for only $2.50. Get more value on the under $3 menu.
Limited time only. Prices and participation may vary. Prices may be higher for delivery.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. You know those friends who support your preference for podcasts over music on road trips? That's the energy State Farm brings to insurance. With over 19,000 local agents, they help you find the coverage that fits your needs. So you can spend less time worrying about insurance and more time enjoying the ride. Download the State Farm app or go online at statefarm.com. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Former landlords. Now, I wondered if it was possible to find out if any former landlord or bar staff met the description of this sharp-featured man with slicked back brill-creamed hair. It sounded like a 20th century man to me, and I was able to find numerous photographs of landlords and staff who worked at the Pheasant from the 1960s well into the 80s and 90s. These were all in the local newspaper archive. But none of these people fitted the bill. They were all too jolly looking, too healthy looking. I even found a photograph from the early 80s of a landlord of the pub at the time, Roy Peacock, doing washing up on the bar wearing blue washing up gloves. The article explained that this landlord Roy refused to do the washing up unless he had gloves, but he also refused to wear gloves that he deemed to be too feminine, coloured pink or yellow. A regular in the Pheasant had brought Roy some blue washing up gloves from the US, and great jollity ensued, leading to this photo opportunity. Steph, on seeing the image, pointed out that on first glance, it looks like a séance is being held at the bar. It's a nice piece of social history. In 1983, washing up and certain colours were deemed to not be manly in certain quarters, but men with these beliefs were beginning to be gently mocked. Going back earlier than the 1960s, photographs are much harder to find, but there are some fascinating stories about some of the Pheasant's earliest landlords. The pub was in the hands of the Wren family for 37 years, from 1869. First, there was Walter Wren, and then his son Joseph, and finally, Joseph's wife Laura. It was Laura Wren who was running the Pheasant the night William Robinson had his fatal fall. The Wrens also ran a fishmonger's business in Biggleswade alongside the pub. The first story I came across involving the Wrens is one about Walter Wren from 1892. And he's up in court accused of using foul, disgusting and abhorrent language towards Dan Albone. Now, just on the pronunciation of Albone, all the way through Weird in the Wade, I've mentioned lots of Albones and I've called them Albone. But apparently it's from St Albans, and so I should be saying Alban. So I'll swap now and I'll say Alban. Dan Albone was a much admired and celebrated townsman of Biggleswade. He invented a type of light petrol-powered tractor, in fact I believe it was the first one, and various bicycles. He won over 180 cycling races. He was a cycling celebrity of his day. He even invented a motor car when cycling manufacturing took a downturn in the 1890s. His origins were quite humble as well. He came from a large family and his father was the landlord of the Olie Arms in Biggleswade. So, like Walter Wren, he knew a thing or two about pubs. In 1892, Dan would have been 32 and a well-known figure around Bedfordshire, cycling on his Ivel safety bike around the town of Biggleswade and the country lanes. It seems Walter, who would have been in his 50s, was none too fond of Dan Albone. This disagreement either started or was exacerbated in the autumn of 91. Some of Walter's sons and one of his carts was caught up in an accident late at night on the Great North Road with some cyclists. The 4 cyclists were heading to Peterborough, some 40 miles north of Biggleswade, in the dark. A court case was heard after the accident and blame was placed mainly on the Wrens for not controlling their horses and riding too close to the cyclists, causing the accident. However, the cyclists also may have spooked the horses in the dark. Thankfully, the cyclists weren't badly injured, but their bikes were damaged, and Dan Albone not only fixed them, but gave evidence in support of the cyclists at the court case. But by 1892, you might think that this unfortunate incident had been put behind them. Not so it seems. There was still beef between these two men. The court in Biggleswade hears that one morning Dan Albone passed Walter Wren and his friend Mr Warren on Station Road, where Dan greeted the men with a good morning. He claimed that Walter Wren, rather than wishing him a good morning in return, used foul and disgusting language towards him. Walter Wren admits that he told Dan Albone, and this is a euphemism I'm guessing, to go about your business. Walter claims he was provoked into this response after Albone dissed him by calling him Walter and not Mr Wren. Dan pointedly referred to Mr Warren in this respectful way. Albone then cycled away from the men and looked back over his shoulder to giggle at Walter. And giggle is the word that Walter uses. At the train station, minutes later, the two men came face to face again. This time, there were over 30 witnesses who heard Albone criticise Wren for using bad language and warned him to take care. Walter Wren's response was to again tell Dan to go about his business. All the witnesses agreed that the language used was most despicable and disgusting. Walter Wren refused to apologise to Dan Albone and is fined 40 shillings. But he tells the magistrate, "I would rather pay £500 before apologising to him." It's not the only time Walter's fruity language is commented upon in the newspapers either. Interestingly, this court case is noted to be the first time the Town Police Clauses Act is used in Biggleswade, because Biggleswade had recently been incorporated into the status of a town for policing. The Town Police Clauses Act of 1847 is still in force today, and it still has a clause around the use of obscene language. It also has other antisocial behaviour and public order offences included in it, And one of those is the famous beating a carpet in public before 8 a.m, which is still on the statute. So don't go out there beating a carpet in public before 8 a.m. You could get fined. Walter's son Joseph takes over from his dad in 1900, but Joseph dies suddenly at the age of 40 in 1905, leaving his wife Laura as the landlady. I can only imagine that she was an extremely devoted wife, as the newspaper reports that she took to her bed after Joseph's death and never fully recovered, dying less than a year after her husband. She was only 39 years old. Their children and nephews and nieces remained in Biggleswade, some running the fishmonger's business and a fish and chip shop for many decades. The next landlord of the Pheasant had a rather extraordinary life. John Housden and his son Morris ran the pub between them for 33 years. We know that when John was 19, he lost a hand in an accident with a wheat chaffing machine, which just sounds horrific. Housden, like the Wrens, also had a business interest outside of being a publican. Most notably, he was a steam engine driver, but unfortunately was involved in a fatal accident whilst driving his steam engine along London Road in Biggleswade. The incident took place on the 7th of May, 1914, and appears to have been a freak accident. 2 bolts had come loose within the engine's levers, so that when Housden, who was driving the engine, tried to slow it down, the engine would not respond. The machine crashed into the back of a pig cart, the driver of which was Herbert Bryant, a father of 12. He was described as an honest and industrious man who had made a good business in market gardening and pig dealing. He was a staunch Liberal and would be missed dearly by his large family and friends, the newspapers said. Herbert's death is deemed an accident by the inquest jury, and no one is said to be culpable. But I can't imagine how being involved in such a tragedy must have affected John Housden, who was to face another tragedy in just a few years' time during the First World War, when his son Omar was killed. John died aged 75 in 1936 at the Pheasant after being injured in another steam engine accident near Peterborough, which he never fully recovered from. John's son Morris, although only licensee for 3 years, had practically been running the pub on behalf of his father for at least a decade. Morris, or should I say his spirit, after his death, was often blamed for odd occurrences in the pub long after drinkers remembered him personally. And although none of the stories I've told you shed light on the nightmare Tom had, we don't know what Walter and Joseph Wren looked like, nor John and Morris Housden for that matter. But what of these other occurrences which have happened at the Pheasant over the years? Well, Tom told me of a few which have happened recently in the pub, and one made me think of a story I'd been told which dated back to the 1990s. But we started our chat with me being concerned that talking about the nightmare may have made things difficult for him at the pub.
I know, you have to carry on working there.
Well, I don't mind working there. The place has never felt hostile. The place has always felt quite welcoming to me.
Interestingly, today when I was talking with Paul about his recollections of the paranormal sleepover, as Brian called it, we felt that the Pheasant has got such a lovely atmosphere. I mean, there were a couple of weird things that happened. Paul felt like a cold band around his middle. Yeah. He was sitting by himself in the corridor waiting for us to come back after Brian had called me and Steph away. He can't explain it. The rest of him was normal temperature. I felt somebody poke me on the wrist. I was standing by the bar. I thought somebody had walked past me and was just trying to get my attention. So I turned and there was no one there and nobody had come through and everyone was in their normal places. It was just like spending the night in a pub. We were all having a great time.
This is where the wonderful sceptical part of my brain does really get to have a bit of fun. I do genuinely feel like places have a vibe.
Yeah.
And that vibe is cultivated over a long time. Old places, old towns, they always have a certain energy about them that is one of the reasons why people love to go exploring them. You travel to another country, you see an old town, you can feel that something different there, but you can never quite place your finger on what it is, and it makes you want to explore it. Some places give a bit of a creepy energy that makes people go, ooh, the place must be haunted. But if somewhere can be uncomfortable, why can somewhere not be comfortable? I didn't know about half the history that was there until you told me about it, but you talk about, oh, someone died singing. Like, they were dancing and pissing around with a friend, and the next thing you know, they've clonked themselves on the head and they don't wake up. well, how do you want to go? Like, that's how I want to go. If I'm dancing around with friends and I get bonked on the head and I don't wake up again, well, that's a great way to die. But yeah, there's no reason a place can't have a positive vibe and that not be the case. If people are of a supernatural inclination, then if they believe that the negative side of things exists, there's no reason the positive wouldn't as well. And in fact, to exclude one and accept the other would be completely irrational.
Has anything else ever happened that has kind of dented that lovely vibe that there is in the Pheasant?
So of the things that have happened there while I've worked there, the things that I haven't got an immediate and obvious explanation for, there's the bottle incident where one of the gin bottles randomly ejected its cork. Which was, I'm going to assume, temperature and alcohol and pressure. That's my running explanation. It did just pop out the top, bounced off the shelf, and I nearly lost the bloody lid. There's also the incident where the entire light fixture in the kitchen decided, right as I was closing up, that it was going to fall off the ceiling. So the whole thing ripped itself off the ceiling, smashed against the side of the cooker, and was dangling by a cable. I'm going to say very old plastic became brittle and something moved it, as in, I don't know, maybe a lorry.
Lorry going past?
Yeah, at that time of night, whereas I'm closing at midnight or around then.
Actually, I know what Kieran O'Keefe would say. These kind of things happen at other times of the day, but we remember it because it's midnight.
Well, I remember it because it's midnight because no one else was there and I was on the last step of my close down, which is cleaning out the glass washer. And suddenly, I'm not getting out in 3 minutes' time when the thing is finished draining. Suddenly, I'm getting out in half an hour's time when I've finished sweeping up all the broken bloody plastic.
Did it make a loud noise?
It made a bloody loud noise.
The reason I ask, one of the stories that I was told involves Paddy's dad. It's not long since they've taken it over. It's a Sunday lunch time, so back then they did Sunday lunches.
Yeah, that would have been about, 18 years ago?
Yeah, from what they've told me. There is an almighty crash from the kitchen. It sounds like everything in the kitchen has just fallen onto the floor. They go rushing through to see, and everything is perfectly in its place. We've got multiple witnesses hearing it. Did they hear what happened to you?
Wouldn't that be interesting? Have you ever seen the show called Through the Wormhole? Morgan Freeman, his episode on time, phenomenal.
Yes.
Covering the prevailing theory, one of them being that everything is happening simultaneously.
Simultaneously, yes. Some of the Aboriginal peoples had this belief, and in other parts of the world as well, that time is a spiral, which means that we're closer to some parts of the past than yesterday. It's interesting that we didn't actually do anything in that kitchen, and yet the kitchen is the one place where I have heard probably the most compelling stories about multiple stuff. So there was also a story about Yorkshire puddings that had been put down on one side of the kitchen. John, it must have been, went to pick them up to put them in the oven. They weren't there where he put them down, and then he found them on the opposite side of the kitchen. But other people were there and kind of witnessed the fact that this had, it was like, hang on, but they were just there and now they're there.
Okay.
Of course, there's loads of sceptical explanations for that.
We don't talk about the gnomes. Carl and I still take the piss about the fact that he dropped the lid from a bottle of Jack Daniels.
All right.
It hit the ground. None of us saw it went. No one has ever found it. Even when the people came to redo the floor behind the bar, no lid was found. It's just gone. It just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
gnomes.
We don't talk about the gnomes.
No, we won't talk about the gnomes.
We may not have heard any large or unexplained bangs on our night at the pub, but of course, if the gnomes had been evident, we wouldn't have talked about them. But of course we would. We did use some different tools for this paranormal investigation to previously at the Haunted Pound Stretcher. Brian had brought along his dowsing rods and tried to make contact with any spirits or energies in the pub, in both the shed and behind the bar. Brian's dowsing rods are two L-shaped copper rods with tubular wooden handles. The wooden handles make it less likely for static electricity to be interfering with the movement of the copper rods. Here's some of what happened. Bear in mind, using dowsing rods is not the most audio-friendly activity, so I will dip in and out to tell you what was happening. Brian started by telling us how he got into dowsing in the first place.
So this is what happened. My story of divining rods, right? I did a lot of work on my house. My house is 1620, right? And I had a guy called Francis, who was 82, who was a digger driver, and I got him to dig out part of the drive. And he said to me, "Have you got an old wire coat hanger, and we'll find the water main?" And I said, "Yeah, okay." So I went, I've got the dry cleaning out. Yeah, I've got these 2 coat hangers. We bent them with a pair of pliers, and he said, "Oh, you go across, and it's like this," and then they just went, and they crossed in my drive. And he went, "No, your water main's there." He said, "You have a go." And I did it, and it went to him, and he went, "Oh, you've got the gift." This was some years ago. I hadn't done anything until about 18 months ago when I started doing the ghost walks and I started going on ghost hunts. And actually, he said I had the gift. Well, I take that with a bit of a pinch of salt, I really do. But when I use rods to talk to spirits, they often appear to be active. So we'll find out what happens now.
Yeah. Okay.
But it all started with some wire coat hangers and an 82-year-old from Tempsford called Francis. Francis, the digger driver. Okay, so I've got the rods nice and parallel still. Okay, just let me get this centred.
And just so you know, this was taking place in the shed, the former mortuary.
So if there's anybody here tonight who wants to communicate with me, I'm here and I've got some divining rods with me in front of me. If you're here and you want to speak, and I come meaning no harm, only with curiosity, if you're here and you want to communicate, please cross the rods in front of me to indicate yes. If there's anybody here that wants to talk, please cross the rods in front of me to indicate yes. That's really good. That's fantastic. Can you just do that left one for me? Okay, thank you. Now can you reset them again for me straight? Can you reset them for me straight? And then we can start again. Okay, thank you.
The rods did reset themselves quite clearly. Although it was dark in the shed, there was enough light to see them moving.
So you're here and you want to communicate, and I really appreciate that, because I say I mean no harm. I'm only here for curiosity. Did you work here in this building? If it's a yes, can you cross the rods? And if it's a no, can you park the rods? Did you work here in this building, this outbuilding at the back of the Golden Pheasant? Did you work here? So park them for a no. Okay, so you didn't work. You didn't work in this building. Okay, can you set them back for me straight?
Now, I've edited these sections because there were some long pauses and repetition as we waited in the dark for those rods to respond fully. As I said earlier, using dowsing rods isn't the most audio-friendly activity.
Okay. Yeah, put them back to the front. That's it. Let's reset again. Okay, so you didn't work in the Golden Pheasant. You didn't work in this building. That's interesting. So you didn't work here. Did you drink in the Golden Pheasant? Did you used to drink here? If it's a yes, please cross them towards me. And if it's a no, please park them. Can you park them a little bit further just so we're really clear? Thank you very much. That's wonderful.
So we ruled out that what or whoever Brian was communicating with hadn't worked on the site nor drank there. We then asked about various time periods when they were alive.
Yeah, the 1900s, the 1800s, the 19th century. Sorry, I'm getting. Thank you.
Yeah,
that's really decisive.
No.
I know. I'm getting a bit tired. That's what always happens. Can you just reset them again for me? I can only do this for a certain amount of time. You're amazing. Okay, so are you still here? If you're still here, cross the rods for me. If you're still here. If you're still here, cross the rods. No, you've gone, haven't you? Okay.
I think it was a child.
Okay.
I think it was a girl.
Gee. See, I don't have that kind of sense. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, and I think that's why they struggled with the knowing about when they were alive.
Possibly. Yeah. I should have asked you, male or female. Or
No, it's fine.
We can
It's
have
fine.
another go in a little while.
Yeah.
I just need to, Okay.
But I think.
Never seen that before.
I'm not touching them.
And it does feel completely empty in here now. As you can hear, Brian was getting tired, as was what or whoever he was communicating with. Now, you might be surprised to hear me speculating on who or what was with us in the shed communicating with Brian's dowsing rods. I know I'm usually on the fence about most things, unsure of what I believe. I can always see both sides of the debate, believer and sceptic. But it really did feel like we were communicating with something. Later on in the evening, I changed my mind about what or who Brian was communicating with. When we tried again in the bar, I thought it was an animal and not a child. How did I come to that conclusion? Well, totally unscientifically, but I just had a feeling. Like Brian, I could tell when the energy in the room changed, when either Brian's tiredness overtook him or the energy we were communicating with disappeared. I know I cannot give you any rational or measurable scientific explanation for that. It was just something that I felt. Do I believe that what Brian and we were communicating with was the spirit of a little girl or animal from the past? I honestly don't know. What I do know is that scientific testing has not been able to demonstrate that dowsing rods can find water or other items. That Chris French, the psychologist and uncanny skeptic, has said dowsing does not work when it is tested under properly controlled conditions that rule out the use of other cues to indicate target location. Yet I know that some water companies were still employing dowsers to find leaks up until the 1990s. If the dowsing rods are responding to the ideomotor effect, tiny, imperceivable, unconscious movements in our hands, then I wonder if the rods could also respond to our thoughts and intentions. Maybe like a form of ESP or telekinesis. Maybe that could be studied and measured. We know that the ideomotor effect happens when using dowsing rods. No matter how still you are, no matter how much you try not to move, the rods do pick up on the most minute of involuntary movements. I can tell you though that when you use the rods, it does not feel like that at all. So I understand that from a scientific perspective, there is no evidence that dowsing rods work to find items or water, let alone communicate with the dead or other unseen energies. That doesn't take away from the experience of using them though. I suppose it's a bit like prayer. You have to have faith, suspend disbelief. And I can hold both those things in my mind at the same time. This can't be proven to be real, but it feels real. I do believe that places have atmospheres and energies that we haven't yet found a way to measure. And those energies might be able to communicate with us, if possibly reluctantly. What they are, I really don't know. A spirit of place, residual emotion, interdimensional creatures, weird time loops, or spirits from former people. I really don't know, but I think at some point we will find out. Others in the group had slightly different experiences with dowsing rods, as Andy and Steph explain.
We got nothing, and then Steph had a go, and as soon as Steph picked up the dowsing rods, the radio started crackling really for 3 or 4 seconds, the longest crackle.
Wow.
We got communication that said that the spirit wanted to communicate, but we couldn't get a definitive message. Well, Steph can probably tell it better.
Well, we were asking lots of different questions of it, starting with the standard stuff of, do you want to talk to us?
Yeah.
Is there anything that you want to tell us? And went through asking if it was the same spirit that we'd been talking to in the corridor. But apart from just drifting, I wasn't getting definitive crossing or uncrossing. It didn't feel like a signal, did it? Whereas when you guys were doing it, it felt almost as though, I don't want to kind of overplay this, but as if something was blocking it, as if there was a reluctance to it moving. Whereas with me, it was more just there's really nothing coming through. But that crackle on the radio, that unsettled all of us. I don't want to swear on tape, but that was...
there were points where where you sort of said, do you wish to communicate? And it did cross. Yeah. But then we couldn't get any answer to any other yes/no questions. But perhaps we were asking the wrong questions. And we even said, this is definitely my first rodeo. Yeah. And I thought perhaps I should have come with pre-prepared questions, because to be honest, I wasn't expecting anything anything like this.
Well, we learn from when we come and do it at your house.
Exactly. I'm going to have to warn the neighbours.
What Steph was referring to was when she, Paul and I had sat in the passage using the rods to try and make contact with any energies or spirits there. We had quite an interesting time, as you'll hear.
So can you do that for me again? If there's anybody here, can you cross the rods over, please?
I've done it.
Yep.
Wow, they're really crossed.
They're really crossed.
And I heard that. Did you hear it as well? Yeah, when they click.
Are you William?
That's not moving
at all. It's not William. Okay. Were you a landlord here? No?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. It's hard for me to see here in the dark.
That...
You'll have to tell me when they're moving.
Okay.
Are you Walter Wren?
Definitely no.
Oh.
They're actually, because I'm sitting right by the wall, they're tapping.
They're tapping the wall. I heard them.
Just move a little bit further up.
Are you Joseph Wren? Were you alive in the 20th century?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crossed.
Oh, wow.
That was quite a cross.
You're alive in the 20th century. Were you a landlord here in the 1960s? Are they still crossed?
No, they're straight again.
They're straight again. Were you a landlord? Oh, did they move then?
The right one wiggled.
Okay.
Not as far as across yet, if we're being strict.
Were you a landlord here in the 1970s?
Nope, no movement.
In the 1980s?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. Gosh. Is there something you want to tell us?
Yes.
Oh gosh, how do we work that one out?
Is it about anybody here? No.
No.
Good.
Sadly, we stopped getting responses after this point, and the group from the shed returned to the main pub, so we had to stop after thanking whatever or whoever had been communicating with us for their time. Music time. We had one more trick up our sleeves for the night. Music. With a pub with a haunting connected to music, surely if anything was going to entice activity, then music was. First of all, Olie and I tried a Bedfordshire May Carol, a traditional folk song which I used as the song William Robinson sang on the original episode. Of course, there's no evidence that William sang or even liked this song, which he probably would have known though.
I have been rambling all the night and the best part of the day, and now I'm returning back again. I have brought you a branch of May, a branch of May, my dear, I say, before your door I stand. It's nothing but a sprout, but it's well budded out by the work of my own hands.
Next, we settled down for Olie to play some guitar, and he opted for Night Watch, the song he wrote for the Cooper's Hill episode. For me, and I think for all of us, it was the highlight of our paranormal sleepover. Sitting in the dark pub well past 2 a.m, listening to Olie play the guitar and sing. That's the one. Yeah, it's brilliant, isn't
The moonlight taking the place of the daylight, shadows that move in the dark night. Were they there before? On night watch, the silence, it deafens, it takes hold. From nothing comes something and sounds calm. Were they there before? And it pulls you in, and it takes you down and around the bend. Creatures creeping beneath your warren, the hunter becomes the hunted in the dead of night, and it pulls you in, and it takes you down and around the bend. And it pulls you in, and it takes you down and around the bend.
Unfortunately, whilst the music was happening, I don't think any of us noticed any unusual activity, and nothing seemed to have been picked up on any of the cameras or my recording equipment. But we did have a trail cam in the cellar, I mentioned earlier that Olie had left that trail cam in the cellar, and it does have one unexpected trigger. It was at 12:59 and 21 seconds, so much earlier than the music was being sung. The camera at that point was triggered, but there appears to be no one or anything that has set it off. No insects, no humans, nothing. I started recording audio in the passageway at exactly 1 a.m, so 39 seconds after the camera was triggered. At the same time, the other group were all in the shed, noticing that light making the AM radio crackle. So I can't see that the mystery activity in the cellar was linked in any way to our activities, as both groups were settled in different parts of the pub, well away from the cellar. It's a very small and compact cellar at the Pheasant. And having been in that cellar, I am surprised at how small it is, only taking up part of underneath the bar. It doesn't go very deep either towards the main street. However, the archway into either another larger cellar or the town tunnel system is visible behind a load of equipment. There's no way that we're getting into that bricked up doorway though. So I don't think we'll ever find out what triggered the trail cam down in the cellar at that precise time, but I don't think it was connected to anything that we were doing. I'm going to end today's episode with some thoughts from the Scooby Gang about their impressions of the paranormal sleepover. And of course, I want to thank all of them for making this paranormal sleepover happen. Thank you.
I found it amazing, to be honest. I must say I came here with very, very sceptical mind, and the experience I've had have absolutely surpassed my wildest imagination. I could not believe that I could experience such unexplainable phenomenon in my local pub.
Well, I went into it with my usual open mind. I was sort of expecting it to be a bit more authentic in this building because it's less refurbished, less interfered with, I suppose. It's an old pub, isn't it? Whereas the haunted pound stretcher up the road where we went last time was a bright new shiny gym and cafe. But this is a pub, and that was interesting to relate the stories to an exact location, which I found a bit more authentic and a bit more meaningful, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, I thought the bit in the morgue initially was really interesting, and I thought that was the most intriguing part of it, hearing noises and then Brian with his dowsing rods. Mm-hmm. He was really good. You know, he was just like, you know, very, very calm. Suddenly when he started talking, it was like, this is it, professional, this means business now, you know, no more mucking about. Because my inclination was to be like muck about, but I was like, no, okay, be serious now.
Certainly the experience of going down into the cellar and that moment of being there and having the AM/FM radio that Andy had brought, just picking up static until he started divining and was asking questions. And I stepped a little closer and the radio suddenly made the most immense crackle. Just that moment in the atmosphere down there, it's not the most pleasant place in the world to be. You can feel that it's quite unsettling for a lot of reasons. But just having that happen almost in response to me moving closer, that kind of unsettled me for a moment or two. So that one stayed with me.
I want to say a huge thank you again to the Scooby Gang, to Brian, Rhiannon, Andy, Paul, Olie, Mikey, Steph and Tom. Thank you so much for making that paranormal sleepover so memorable. Don't forget to keep an eye on social media and the show blog to get more information about the paranormal sleepover, including photographs and, of course, that sketch of the nightmare figure by Tom. And as I mentioned earlier, there will be an update about new activity which has happened in the last few days at the Golden Pheasant in our next episode on the 11th of May. Weird in the Wade is researched, written, presented and produced by me, Nat Doig. Additional editing in this episode was by Tess Savagir. Tess also composed our theme music.
Business owners, game day isn't just another shift, it's your biggest opportunity. What you show on your screens decides where fans stay. EverPass brings premium live sports together in one streaming platform built for businesses, so you can deliver the games your customers want without the hassle. Reliable, easy to manage, and designed for your venue. Make your place the one fans choose. Visit everpass.com to learn more.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.